You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Hi, my name is Stephen Long, and I host a show here on Rock Candy called Sacred Tension. It's about the spiritual discipline of asking questions. If you find yourself uncomfortable in your faith, or if you find yourself caught between modern science and ancient religion, or if you're curious about the journeys of others who are sorting out faith and doubt, Sacred Tension is a place where nothing is off limits. You will find conversations with pastors, cult experts, spiritual leaders, and skeptics, all discussing the ways we navigate the faiths we were given. Find Sacred Tension right here on Rock Candy and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Eleventylife podcast.
What's up, unicorns? Welcome to the very first Eleventylife episode of the year 2023. I'm so happy that you're here with us. I hope that your holidays were incredible, that your family dynamics were not too complicated, and that you were able to enjoy the ooeyest, gooeyest goodness that the holidays had to offer. We are currently snowed in here at the magical Rock Candy recording studios in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm excited to have a minute to catch back up with all of you and kick the podcast off. Eleventyseven has been hard at work over the winter months so far on brand new material. We are hoping to have possibly a couple of EPs, maybe even a full length released sometime this year, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Huge hugs and high fives to everybody who is continuing to include us on all of your favorite Spotify playlists. We get to see those numbers every single week, and it is incredibly encouraging for us. So thank you for letting us be a part of your drive, of your commute, of your chores, of your house cleaning. I'm not even going to waste your time with anything else. I have an incredible conversation lined up for you guys today on the Eleventylife podcast. I get to sit down with the one and only Travis Ference. He is a fellow record maker, producer, engineer, mix artist, and you've probably heard his work on some material from Imagine Dragons, Taylor Swift, Bush. We had an opportunity to sit down and compare notes on the record making process, on what makes a good recording experience for artists and engineers alike. Albeit this conversation does get a little bit nerdy in the middle. This is an incredible primer for understanding how the roles of the artist, the mix engineer, the mastering engineer, and the producer are all changing, shifting, morphing, melding. Check the show notes for more info if you want it. Love you guys. Let's do the damn thing.
Did my audio work?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Nice to meet you as well. Yeah, I got a little bit of latency here. I'm just going to take that ear off.
Check. Okay. All right. Everything's working over here.
Cool. Dude, you sound great on this end. That's amazing.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm going to track my mic and then the FaceTime output. I'll just send both of those to you so you can have it for sync.
That's great. That is very kind of you. Right on, man. Great to finally meet you and put a face to the name. So you're in Los Angeles right now?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
How's your day been so far?
It's been good. Are we rolling? Did we start?
It's always rolling.
Okay, it's always rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my day's been great. Kind of all over the place. I have an 8-month-old. So we're learning balance all over again.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
That's killer. What's their name?
Scotty. It's a little girl.
Oh, love that.
Yeah. Different name. We dig it.
So fun. That's awesome, man. I always wonder about this with like new parents. Are you secretly hoping deep down that they just are super into music, that they want to join a band, that they want to sing, that they want to play something? Or are you like, no, let's just let the cards fall and I'm happy to be like soccer dad if I need to be?
I don't know. I've thought about that because, it would be awesome, to like make some music with your daughter or your kids if you have multiple kids. But then like just knowing like how hard it is and like the sacrifices, it's like, do I want them to go down that road? And if they want to, like, I'll totally support it. But I don't know.
Oh my
know.
gosh, that might be the wisest response that I've ever gotten from anybody. Because there's so many things in my life. I feel like my life is very rich because I got into music, and because it was like, for me growing up, it was the very like rebellious thing to do. Nobody in my family or in our town like knew anything about the music industry. We didn't have any help from anyone, and it was a bonkers thing. Nobody really knew what I was getting into. But now it's like, I feel like it's given me this whole set of skills in which it's like, no, whatever job it is, I'm pretty sure I can do it because I've played 100 shows to no one. And
Yes.
if you can walk through that and still play your 101st show where 20 people start to show up, then it's like you have this superpower that other people don't have.
Yes, I was just talking about this with somebody else on my podcast, and they basically said the same thing. They're just like, they felt like they really want to see more creatives running like Fortune 500 companies because there's like all these mental things that you have to just conquer as a creative, even if, graphic arts or music or whatever. So yeah, I agree. It's like, there's so much to learn, and it's just, it's challenging, but it's super fulfilling.
Did you grow up playing in bands, or how did you get into this?
Barely. I grew up in North Carolina. You're in North Carolina, right?
Oh my gosh, where in North Carolina?
I was born and raised in Raleigh.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations, friend. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I love it there. Actually, I thought about going to Asheville for college, but it didn't pan out. But I haven't been there in like 20
like
some
UNCA
years.
or?
Yeah, UNCA. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I guess, how I got into this was middle school. A friend of mine was like, hey, we need a bass player for the talent show. And I was like, cool, what's bass? And so, I got a bass. I was atrocious. And then a couple other guys in the band were like, he can't play with us in the talent show. And I was like, what? I just bought a bass. We were playing Glycerin by Bush. Like, it's just, 4 root notes, right?
How do you fuck that up?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wasn't good enough. I didn't understand time or something.
Yeah.
But that's how I got sucked in. And that same friend ended up leaving his guitar at my house because he had to move somewhere. So I started playing his guitar, and then I wanted to get a guitar. And really, so my music started as a guitar and bass player in middle school, high school.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have gone to music school or pursued music unless I played sports and I got hurt. And I spent like a whole season, basically missed a whole season of lacrosse, and just recorded my friend. And that's kind of how I got sucked into recording.
Yeah.
Realized that I wasn't very good at playing guitar, so maybe I should record somebody who's better than me. And then that kind of spiraled into recording. And then obviously I mentioned, UNC Asheville, I think they had like a electrical engineering program with like an audio focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my parents were very interested in me getting like an electrical engineering degree with like some kind of like minor in music. And I was very interested in
no pressure.
Not doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
But, I ended up at Berklee College of Music in Boston. And so I did their recording program there, and moved to LA and started the whirlwind of the music industry. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I used to teach audio production at a college here in North Carolina, and it always kind of struck me the varying stories that would come out of people that had gone to Berklee or were trying to get into Berklee. It seems like one of the coolest, raddest places to meet some of the most interesting people of all time. But yeah, I don't know what it's like boots on the ground there, if it's like a whole lot of smoke and mirrors, like now that you're on the outside of it, you've got some credits under your belt, you've had like a pretty successful career doing what you're doing. If you feel like it was worth it to you, or if it's complicated.
No, I love this question because this is a topic that I really enjoy because, I'm separated like almost, 18 years or something like that. 16, 17, somebody can do the math. I thought it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I think that, I don't know what it's like now, but I know a lot of the same people are there. So I would imagine that it's very similar. I think it's about as prepared as you can be without being in the real world, but it's still also completely unlike the real world.
Yes.
I mean, the things, as somebody that taught an audio program, you would probably agree. There's 2 things that I got out of it. One being the connections in the network. Like, you were there with all these like-minded people. I guess these aren't things I got out of it. These are things that I would say about it. What you're going to get from a program like that is you're going to get a network of people that want to do this for their whole life. They may not. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is you're going to get in you're going to get out what you put in.
Right.
I don't know if you edit, but there's a nice spot to edit right there.
Yeah. That's great.
Because if you're going for like a math degree or like a history degree or like a non-music degree, like you can do really well and just absorb the knowledge.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like music or like writing or filmmaking, like these are things you just have to do.
Yeah.
And you just have to immerse yourself in whatever community, doesn't have to be a super expensive college, but you need to find the equivalent for you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of 50-50. Not like I said, I have a daughter. I'm like, do I want her to go to college in 18 years? It seems very expensive. And I see a lot of people without college degrees that are making more money than me. So
Right.
But that's kind of my thought there. I think it's a great program. It's crazy different now. They have like a skyscraper with 15 recording studios in it.
Oh my God.
It's like slightly unrealistic, but but awesome in that unrealistic way. So
yeah. And then everyone graduates and they have to go back to their like Sapphire interface and their like couple of mics.
Yes. Yeah. Funny story. When I moved to LA, I worked at Capitol Studios, which is currently closed, but it's in the first floor of the Capitol Records building.
Yeah.
And we were redoing Studio A. I don't remember what year this was. I don't know, like 2012, 15, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And we were putting in this brand new Neve 88R console, which is just an amazing console, but it had what they called the scoring panel, which basically allowed film scoring engineers to print all the various stems. For anybody that's listening that's like unfamiliar with like film score, there's a lot of stemming of parts so that when it goes to get mixed in with the video, they have control of things without having, 80 microphones for the orchestra. They have stems of the woodwind, stems of the strings. So yada, yada. Super expensive. You had to like pipe AC into this thing. I mean, I think that feature alone was like a 6-figure feature.
Oh my God.
And so I remember the guy at Neve saying, yeah, this has the scoring panel in it. It's only the third one we've ever installed. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Where are the other two? And he was like, I think Abbey Road, and then Berklee College of Music. And I was like, Berklee College of Music? What do they need this for? There's only 3 of them. But anyway, it's an amazing facility. I'm poking fun at them, but it's top notch. So
yeah, no, that's awesome because God knows there's so many people that are going to go on to do movie scoring that just like are flying out of Berklee College of Music right now. It's
and
so funny.
Straight to Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on something really important where it's like I resonated with that where I still talk to a bunch of kids, students, people like coming up. I don't mean kids in a derogatory way. I just mean like people younger getting into industry for the first time.
Right.
And they'll all kind of have the same things to say like, yeah, like I want to be a producer. I want to be a rapper. I want to be an artist. I want to be like a famous so-and-so. And that's normally the part of the conversation where I stop them and I'm like, okay, what it sounds like you want is that you're in love with this idea of something. You're in love with an image that you've seen on something. Because if you wanted to be an artist, the best advice that I can give you is you either already are one, right? Or you probably are just in love with the idea of artistry. So it's like the things that you want to do for the rest of your life or that you want to make a career out of should be the work that you already have naturally in your life that you find fun, that you find engaging, and that sort of tickles that part of your brain. I don't know if that resonates with you at all or if you've kind of had similar conversations with people.
Oh, totally. I don't know. I listen to a lot of like entrepreneur business podcasts. I just find all those things like super interesting. And, a lot of them touch on basically just that. And it really, it does resonate with me. And there was somebody that said, you have to, you said you're in love with the idea of being an artist. You can't be in love with the outcome of, having your Grammys. You have to be in love with the process. Yeah. Because that's what's going to keep you going. Because there's ups and downs. And the downs, like, they feel like they're further and further and further down every time you hit one. Like, it feels like you're just going lower and lower.
Right.
But maybe you were just higher up, so it feels like it hurts worse when you go down.
True.
But it's a roller coaster. And the only way to, like, power through, a long career in music is to just love making music or love writing lyrics or mixing records. Like, whatever role you're playing, it has to be the process, because that's how you get better too. Like, I love mixing records. Some days I don't have as much work to do and I get lost messing with a plugin. That's because I love messing with the plugin, and it's going to make me a little bit better every day. Like, if I didn't love it, I'd go golf horribly like I do once a month.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's all about the work and what you can put in. You just can't assume you're going to be famous or that you're going to get a new Music Friday placement or whatever it is. You got to love what you're doing if you want to make it through this, because it's tough. And I don't want to sound like super negative. I feel like I'm coming off as negative today, but I think there's more opportunity to be like a middle-class musician in the world now than there was, like, I don't know, 20 years ago.
So
I feel like there's so many ways to go.
I want you to break that down specifically in an era where some of my favorite artists now are starting to cancel tours because of the expense of it, or because of the economics of it. And I totally understand it's a huge world to live in. There are ways to make touring work, and there are times where it's like, well, you know what, that's just not financially viable. But then I also think that there are benefits to touring, to playing live, to developing that persona, developing that like visceral connection with a crowd that doesn't turn into money that night, but that does turn into something incredibly palpable over the course of 3 or 4 years of being consistent with it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think it goes back to kind of the compounding of your career. For one, you have to start somewhere, and it's like you're going to be playing to 10 people at coffee shops, and then the next year you're going to be playing at 20 people to open mics, and it's going to go up and up. The touring world post-COVID is not something the touring world's not something I'm involved in, but my friends that are in it, I know post-COVID it's tough. Like, I know it's really hard. I've seen ticket prices. I have family members that are going to see Harry Styles tonight in LA, and they've paid far too much money.
No
sure
kids are going to college now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, would you like to go to college, or would you like to go see Harry Styles? Harry Styles. But I think it's important for two reasons, because you have to build that fan base. I'm a big fan of, I don't know who coined it, but the 1,000 true fans idea of, if you have 1,000 people that love what you're doing, and they buy your CD and they stream your music and they buy your shirt and they spend $100 a year, that's $100,000.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's not a lot of people. Like, you think like, well, 1,000 people isn't that many. I can have 1,000 fans. And so I think if you're doing something you're really passionate about, you put the work in, that you'll find that, you'll find that audience for anything. Like, even if it's ambient drone music, there's 1,000 people out there. There's not 100 million people out there, but there's an audience for everything. And so if you're willing to go out there and find it, there's a career for you there. So I think playing live is important for that aspect. The other thing that I think is maybe not as obvious is I think it helps you grow. I think you're going to change songs. You're going to see how people react. You can try new material before you spend money to record it. I know a band that I recorded a version of a song with that they've been playing live for like 6 or 7 years, and they've never got the studio version they wanted, but it's like a fan favorite. And like one day that song's going to come out and everybody's going to lose their mind. So I think there's a lot to just the growth side of playing live as well. Even as a live sound guy, like, I think, if you're an audio engineer, you're on the road every night seeing how people react to what, and like what you're doing on that on that console can, I think, really translate to becoming a better mixer in the studio, because you're like, oh, the energy live is when this happens. Can I translate that into the studio? So it's tough right now in live music. I'm not going to say that, it's not, but I think it's important, and I think it will continue. People want to go out and see music.
I feel like over the last 5 years, a lot of the stuff that I've read, or even that I was teaching at the time, I had kids that would bring me all of these articles that were basically saying that there is not going to be such a thing as a middle-class musician. This is like pre-pandemic. This is before everybody realized the wonders and the power of the internet, actually, for creators. But there's a whole lot of that. I want to know what it is that makes you optimistic about the health of middle-class musicianry. And I maybe we should explain what we mean by middle-class musicianry. I would mean by that somebody who is able to make a decent living, something above a minimum wage subsistence off of their artistry, in that if they want to start a family, they want to have a kid, they want to get married, that they have the financial freedom to be able to entertain those ideas, and they don't feel strapped down to the impoverished cycle of the musician. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would define it the same way. I mean, I guess I think of it as if, music is your sole income, and maybe that's not necessarily as an artist. Like, maybe you are an artist and that's 50% of your income, but you also play in a band, or you make, samples for Splice or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you have some music library cues. I just think there's a lot of different places that you can diversify and still like be working in your passion of music. And my feeling that there's more opportunity for artists is, I guess just from my interaction with independent artists, I work with more and more independent artists that are getting Spotify placements, that are getting way more streams than they did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay rates for mixes closer to labels, and they can sustain their own careers. I know a lot of people that work as independent, like label services people that used to work for record labels, and now they do promo for independent artists for a monthly fee or playlisting or, independent A&R people. I see a lot of people that used to be in the major label system, and they used to be exclusive to those, the people that were signed to major labels. Yeah. They're now on the outside, and they're still doing their major label gigs, but they're also working with independent artists who are able to pay for radio promo because they did a big sync, or they made some trailer music and got $100,000, and now they're going to do their record at a great studio.
Yeah.
So I think the key, though, is to understand the music industry as a whole and not to be very closed-minded. Like if you're a really great guitar player and you play, solo jazz guitar at, the local restaurant, I don't think what I'm describing applies to you. You need to expand your mind out, and maybe you can do a bunch of recordings that you can sell to a music library and start getting some mailbox money, or go play with somebody. So I definitely think it's in the diversification and understanding how the whole business works, and not necessarily like mastering a thing. I do this one thing. I think you need to do everything.
One of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast, and specifically with people who are touring, people who are the kinds of artists that are hiring session musicians, they're hiring their friends to come in, they're hiring that network of people. It blows my mind how many times I saw this happen in the studio, that like, it is not always the best guitarist that gets the gig. A lot of times it's the best hang. If you're an approachable person, you're a cool guy to hang out with, and you have like halfway good kind of cool ideas, you can pull something out of your ass from time to time that, just really sparkles. Like everybody is far more interested in that, because a lot of times it's not like what affects the product is that magic sort of happening in a place where creative people can get together, and there's not an ego about it. There's not this like, it has to be my idea. It has to be my thing. Like I really have to make this work. Not to say that people shouldn't get really good at what they're doing or hone their chops or, push themselves artistically, but developing yourself as a person, like to be able to have the kind of personality, the anxiety levels under control, where you can go into those situations that might feel really high pressure and still be able to like hold your shit together. It's a big deal.
That is a huge deal. And I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. I really think this applies to the touring world, because you're on a bus, right? Yeah. And you're crammed in with the rest of the band. Maybe the artist has their own bus, maybe they don't. And like, if nobody wants to be on the bus with you, you're not going on the next tour.
You're not.
But then on top of that, I know a lot of always seems to be bass players. I don't know why.
Okay.
Musicians that are on the road making connections and moving into songwriting and production because they became friends with the artist, because they knew the band really well, and they get pulled in because somebody else has a gig. So the hang and the network just far outweighs the skill set, I think. You have to be really good at whatever you're doing to get in the door. But like, once you're in the door, the difference between the best guitar player in the world and like the 102nd best guitar player in the world is kind of out the window.
Right.
Unless you're doing a technical shred record, and then you're going to have to stick to the top few. But yeah, the hang in the studio, 18-hour days with people, like even an assistant with a bad vibe will kill a session, especially a writing session. You can like feel it. So
yes, absolutely. So here's what I want to put to you. Do you have a story about a session? Maybe it's the worst session of your life. Maybe it was the most stressful one. Maybe you caused the shit. Maybe somebody else did. But do you remember, is there something that you still, like when you think back to a session that you had, you cringe, and why?
There was a writing session I did once. For anybody, just a quick rundown of my career. I spent a lot of my career as an engineer for songwriting sessions, working for producers or working for publishing companies. Yeah. So lots and lots of songwriting sessions, working with lots of high profile or like newly signed people. Yeah. Usually the newly signed people are a little bit more ego than the high profile people, funny enough. But there was a full on shouting match in a session once.
Oh my God.
And it was, two top liners writing to track. So there was no producer to mediate. and the artist was there. And the fact that there was an argument while the artist was there was even more shocking. But
Oh
anyway,
my God.
this girl was in the booth. She was like singing the verse, right? They'd written a song, and she's like doing the takes. And the two songwriters started arguing over who knows what. You know, you're like looking through the glass, and she can see like arms flying, and you know, I'm just like sitting there, and I got on the talkback, and I was like, we just need 1 second here. And she's like looking like, what is going on in there? What is going on? And one guy ends up like storming out the door, and I was like, did that guy just leave?
No.
And then the other writer's like, I need to call my manager. And I was like talk to the artist. Like, maybe you should come in for a second. Maybe you and I can record this vocal in a few minutes. Maybe we can get a coffee. Reset. And that was probably the most unprofessional like breakdown I've ever seen. I've only seen that once.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people get frustrated, but normally it doesn't come out. Like, you can like look around the room and be like, that person really wants to leave. And then magically like their manager will be like, I need you to get on a call with the lawyer at 6, you know, and they just like disappear. Right. But I've never seen like a real like proper breakdown of just screaming. So, you know, don't fight in sessions. Hot tip.
Do you have any special sort of, I don't know if you're into like Ram Dass, Alan Watts, meditation, centering yourself sort of thing, but do you have any of these sort of mental tricks to use whenever things in the session get really hot or you start to experience some dissonance with the artists or personalities?
I mean, I can remember times where you kind of just try to do little things. I mean, as the engineer, like, you can't really interfere too much.
Yeah.
But there was a producer that I worked with for a while where I was kind of his representative in the room. So if like things were not going great, like we had to try something else, but I'm not going to tell him, hey, we need to change this up.
Yeah.
But anyway, little things like just breaking the concentration, because you'll look around the room, like the chorus has been looping for like literally like 30 minutes and everybody's just like, this beat is just slamming into people's heads. Little things like just hitting stop.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got their phone or their laptop. You can see that one person's on Instagram. They're not like typing lyrics into their phone anymore. Nobody's humming. And sometimes just hitting stop like will break the hypnosis of everybody in the room. Like, oh, that's right. We were writing a song.
Right.
Or sometimes I'll, ask people if they want coffee. Be like, hey, I'm going to grab a coffee. Do you guys want me to make you a coffee?
Yeah.
And generally, if like they want a break, they'll be like, oh, no, take me to the coffee. I'll get my own. I could use a walk, and just little things like that to break up the monotony. I also find it's super important to be ready to do anything. This isn't really a good answer to the initial question, but you just can't be a barrier in any way to the creativity. So like if you're at a stalemate for like an hour and a half and all of a sudden somebody has a melody that they want to put down and get into the computer. Yeah. And for some reason I can't make that happen in 15 seconds, then like somebody should fire me. Like it needs to be like, here, take this microphone. Even if it's like, here, sing into my phone. Like just get this thing into wherever it needs to be. Yeah. And if we need to re-record it somehow, then we'll do that. So I always had, a proper microphone in the booth, a handheld microphone in the control room. Yeah. And I mean, everybody's got their phone on the table. Like there's times where I've actually run a voice note just because I didn't see anybody else doing anything. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to hit record on my phone and like throw it on the table over here. So just being able to capture everything and make sure you're not a barrier. Because when you go through those like, 2-hour mental blocks, when they come out the other side, if you're not ready, then it's really easy to really end the session. Yeah. Like they finally get an idea and they can't execute that idea because I didn't plug something in. They're going home. That's kind of, I don't think that's ever happened to me. It probably has. If I'm giving that to you as advice, that means it probably happened to me. So no, that's great. Don't let it happen to you.
I absolutely love it. I have this like kind of go-to bag of tricks that I really find fun. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. My favorite one is like I love what you said about stopping the session, just like stopping the loop. So a lot of times whoever the person I feel like is about to kind of lose their shit or they feel like they're starting to like put off some weird energy, I'll stop the session, I'll turn around, I'll look directly at them and I'll be like, when was the last time you felt the happiest that you've ever felt? Or like all of us grew up in the South, so we all like grew up in church and have all of that church trauma and damage and everything. So I'll stop the session, turn around and be like, what's the weirdest thing you ever prayed for in church? And it just like gets everybody thinking about something else so that their subconscious can work on the song and we can just have fun for a second. Also like a nice panel of like cavernous fart noises that you just like play out of nowhere does the trick 95% of the time.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't know if the engineer can get away with the fart noises, but at least not on day one of the session, maybe day 3.
Right. You got to build up some social
trust,
capital.
They're like, did the engineer fart? Let's get another engineer. That guy's disgusting.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's like just breaking it up, And even if you go for a walk and like you talk about, like you said, whatever, somebody's trip or like somebody's honeymoon or whatever, everybody's mind is still going.
Yeah.
And, you'll see somebody throw something in a phone while you're walking down the street and you're like, there, finally, we have a chorus melody.
Yeah.
I hope. Let's go back to the studio.
Yeah. I love it.
But yeah.
I love it. Were there certain bands, albums that sort of caught your ear as you were growing up, as you were sort of forming your own sense of artistry that really inspired you, that you heard them and maybe you had this aha moment where you're like, oh, fuck, that was a producer. Like, I've seen this band live. Like, I saw this band before this thing happened. This is a totally different take. This is like a certain kind of magic or pixie dust that they had. And when seeing this translated in a different way, it's sort of mind-blowing for you.
That's a really interesting question. I'm trying to think about, like, did I ever have that moment where I was like, oh my God, the studio is what did this? I don't know. I don't think I did. I think because I started recording things really quickly. I don't know. I don't have a good answer to this. I mean, things that like influenced me a lot.
Yeah.
Were, high school, it was like Beatles nonstop for me. Jimi Hendrix, listening to those records. Was
this something that your parents introduced you to or something that you stumbled upon with your friends?
No, stumbled upon with my friends and just radio. Because it's like radio was, how you discovered everything then. I would say, Beatles and Jimi Hendrix early on, like through college. I guess in college, I started to pay attention to engineers' work because I was learning engineers' names. So I was listening to a lot of 5.1 surround sound mixes by an engineer named Elliot Shiner, because at the time that was popular, Super Audio CD and DVD audio. Two things that most people listening to this podcast have never heard of before. They were like on the up, and like a lot of things were being remixed in surround. So there was like a Beck record that he did, and like Flaming Lips, big Flaming Lips record that was in surround. And so I would book one of the surround rooms at Berkeley, and just pop that in the DVD player and just listen to those. Listen to a lot of like Death Cab for Cutie. So I guess when I was studying production, I started to pay attention to things as a production, not as like a band playing. Yeah. How's that for dodging the answer to your question?
No. That's fantastic. And maybe I overcomplicated the way I was phrasing it. One of the things that struck me when I was growing up is I would start to notice there were certain people, when I would hear an album, I would be like, oh my God, this sounds really cool. And I would go and find out who had mixed it. And a lot of times it would be somebody like Eric Valentine. Yeah. And I would be like, oh my gosh, like it just, these songs just sound different. Like I can hear the session, I can hear what we're working on, I can hear everything else that's coming out. And like there's some way that I feel like he captures this vibe. And I don't know if everybody else hears it or if it's just in my head, but the sonic space, I feel like whenever he mixes a song, I kind of go into another world of the song. Like it feels like his mixing feels like world building. And that was a big moment for me where I was like, oh my God, I'm in control of this. Like we literally watch the same world through monitors every day. And like we can create that for people. I love those little moments. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I found myself listening to a lot of stuff that Andy Wallace did, a lot of Tony Hoffer's productions. And I think he mixed a fair number of them. A lot of like Beck Vulture, Midnight Vultures, right? Was that the name of the record? That sounds right.
Yeah, love that record. I'm pretty sure he did that.
Somebody's going to blast us on Twitter for not getting
this right. It turns out that Tony didn't do that record either. I mean, currently, like from a mix perspective, I think, Serban is really great. Manny Marroquin is really great. It's also like, it's tough when you have like such a small group of people mixing like the most popular music.
Yeah.
I'm a pop person, like, heart and soul. Like I mean,
that's specifically why I wanted to talk to you, because that's what I gravitate towards as well.
Okay, right.
I have the most fun doing pop.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be 39 in a few weeks. My family was like, would you want to go to Taylor Swift? And I'm like, almost. I would almost want to go to a Taylor Swift concert. I would almost go.
When is your birthday?
January 2nd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you missed the Scorpio window.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All Capricorn here.
Okay, because my birthday's coming up this week, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
won't be by the time the podcast comes out, but yeah, I always find it interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess my point being, when you have really well written songs and you have really well produced music, and then you have a really great mixer put it together.
Yeah.
And then it goes to an amazing mastering engineer, and then it gets plastered everywhere and you hear it like a million times.
Yeah.
It's really easy for those things to sound amazing. So I try not to like overanalyze, Manny mixes or Serban mixes. Like, they're amazing, but there's so much production
amazingly
that happens
familiar.
now.
Yeah.
Yes, and you don't know like what did you do and what did you not do. Like, some of those mixes might take them 30 minutes, and other ones might take them like 2 days.
Yeah.
I doubt any of them take them 2 days, but like, it's just the tracks are just so well done, and like, it already sounds great when it gets there generally.
Yeah.
That there's so many producers doing a lot of mixing. Josh Goodwin, I find his name popping up on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A younger guy, I don't know if you know Matt Huber.
That name sounds familiar.
I don't know him personally. He's hopefully going to be on my podcast. We've been talking, but there was like a chunk of time a few years ago where a lot of bands I really was like, wow, this band is really great. I'm gonna see like what's going on, who's like working on this project, and his name was popping up left and right on music that I really loved.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this guy came out of nowhere. Like, good for him. So I think he's doing great work. There's a lot of really talented people out there. So
in terms of like your workflow, do you have any specific, just for everybody listening to the podcast, like super fucking nerd alert. Do you have your 5 or 6 plugins that are immediately your go-to, like, hey, I can't mix without these. I'm so familiar. I've spent the last 10, 15 years using these same ones.
Yeah, for sure. So all the Sound Toys plugins.
Yeah.
I mean, Echo Boy, Echo Boy, obviously, Decapitator, those two I use all the time. Decapitator I like to use almost as an EQ. Like, if you take that tone knob and just like, it's really drastic, but just like take it back like a dot, or take it forward a knot. You're like, I want this to go a little bit further away from me. Decapitator, no drive, just one dot back. So yeah, Sound Toys, amazing plugins. Fab Filter.
Yes.
Particularly Pro L and Pro Q3, obviously.
Yeah.
I just really love Pro Q3. When they switched into having the dynamic stuff in there, it's like game changer. I do a lot of like mid-side EQ. Like, I don't know, my life revolves around like making nothing touch the vocal. So I do a lot of like maybe more than I should MS work.
Sure,
on things.
There's no should.
There's
no should.
What else is Soothe too? I use all the time.
Okay.
I love that plugin, especially the sidechain feature. If anybody's not tried it in sidechain mode, they should try it. Are you familiar with Soothe?
I have a bunch of friends that use it and have tried to turn me onto it. And then I have other friends who are like, man, artists are sending me stuff that they put Soothe on, and I'm having to ask them to go back and like take that bounced version of it, like take that plugin off and rebounce it, because it's like taking too much stuff out because they're listening on really crappy headphones or monitors or something. And
yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I know great engineers that are like, what is this thing? I hate this thing.
Yeah.
It's like very easy to overdo, but you kind of have to think of it a little bit like a compressor, not so much like an EQ, because when it gets aggressive, it starts to sound over compressed to me, not over EQ'd. That's, my opinion. Somebody else right now is like throwing a book at the wall, like that guy's an idiot. But the 99% sure I'm correct in this, that the sidechain, so like if let's say you have a piano vocal, right? So you put Soothe on the piano, but you have the vocal as the sidechain.
Yeah.
What Soothe does is it takes the vocal frequencies out of the piano. So you're kind of like clearing space.
Yeah.
And if you do you do it pretty subtle, like you can't do it drastically because it'll, it's like a track spacer kind of vibe. Everybody's using track spacer these days. But it just kind of is one of those things where like you're doing it right if you bypass your Soothe and like the vocal gets a little clouded, and then you turn it back on and it's like the vocal just kind of steps forward.
Yeah.
I do a lot of things just to get the vocal to just like lean forward a little bit and just be a little untouched. So yeah, Soothe I use a lot. What else? And then Plugin Alliance, their whole subscription has become like all over everything I do.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously UAD as well.
Yeah.
And now that UAD has a subscription, I think it's more attainable to people without the card. Unlike, I don't know if you're on the UAD train and how long you've been on it.
No, I never got on the train. Everything that I've heard from them, I think sounds really great, but there's something about the super nerdy. There's something about the gain staging in those that feels different. And so it's like, it kind of throws me for a loop. I love everything you had to say about Decapitator. There's not a single mix I've done in the last 10 years that doesn't have that like plastered everywhere. The Black Box, I can't sing enough praises for from Plugin Alliance.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing, you mentioned gain staging. Like I think the UAD plugins are like optimized for like minus 18 dB FS in. Can we get nerdy on gain staging for like 2 minutes?
Go for it.
So I just so many people are recording at home, and I think there's this philosophy that made sense when like digital kind of sucked, where it was like you have to use every bit. It's like when it was. We're talking about when it was like ADAT tapes, though. We're not talking about when it was like your computer a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody's in the habit of filling the whole meter up. And so like if you just think about like analog electronics, distortion is because too much level got pushed through something, right?
Yeah.
And so, they'd put VU meters on like all these old consoles so that you knew that you were getting close to the danger zone because you were going to get distortion if you like really pinned that meter and pushed it harder. So that stuff still exists in plugins. So if you fill the meter up in Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton or whatever and leave yourself no headroom, and then you put an analog emulation like a tape machine or an 1176 or something like that on that track, you are hitting that with so much more signal than that analog device was ever designed to handle.
Yeah.
And it was modeled to be like the analog device. So you're totally hitting it way too hard. You're hitting it way harder than anybody would hit it back in the day.
Yeah.
So the thing to remember, at least in Pro Tools Classic metering, it's like just under halfway up the meter is like, that's like 0 VU. So that's kind of generally where I record my tracks are like, just under halfway to like 3/4 up. Like I'm never filling anything. I want to have that space. So you just have to remember that everything you do as you're like EQing is like adding a little bit of gain. And it's like if you add just a little bit of distortion across like 6 different plugins, you've actually added a lot of distortion, and you do that across 48 tracks.
Yep.
And things start to get that like harshness, and you're like, why is it so harsh? I don't understand why it's so harsh. It's because you've just like distorted everything the tiniest bit, and it just kind of builds up. Your ears get used to hearing it. Like, even me at the end of the day, sometimes I like to listen to something the next day before I send it out, and I'm just like come back and be like, wow, like where was my head at like 6 when I closed this session? So
smart.
Anyway, gain staging super important even in the digital world. That's particularly nerdy information, but
No, there's somebody out there has a half erection because you talked about it, and that's great. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is I wonder if you had, or if you remember, a moment that you had in the studio in the session when you're producing for somebody, working with an artist, or it could be something that got released where it was a definingly empowering moment for you. Because we all, as artists, musicians, producers, mixers, I feel like everybody is kind of has this very, very thin layer of confidence on top of like a gaping hole of need and affirmation for what they're doing, because everything's so relative, and like a lot of times we're looking for affirmation from friends, from the public, from the artist, from everybody. And so it takes a long time to get to a place in your career where you feel like, you know what, I'm super confident. Like I did the job. I think this sounds great. I know that it sounds great because I've done other things that sound great before. But was there a moment for you that maybe was like a trigger for that? You were like, oh no, wait, I'm doing the thing. Like I'm doing professional production. I'm mixing. I've not necessarily arrived, but like I'm here. I'm in the same ballpark with everyone else.
Yeah, let's see. The first one that came to mind while you were talking is a record I did when I was on staff at Capitol. And it was for an artist named Lo-Fang, L-O-Fang.
Yeah.
Which is a record that I personally really love. It was called Blue Film, and then I did another record with him later. But that record, I learned a lot from the producer. His name was Francois Titaz, amazing Australian producer. Also did like Gautier and Kimbra. That record was like, I think one of the first times I did a whole record, start to finish, engineering, and I'd co-mixing it with Frank because he's very particular. So I won't say that I mixed that record entirely, but it was Frank and I together. Yeah. But we did the whole thing. I learned so much doing that record. And it was one of the first times that people came to me and they were like, whoa, that record sounds amazing. It was the first time I worked on something that was on the radio. And I heard it on the radio and I was like, this is amazing. Like you're in the car and you just like turn it up all the way and blow your speaker up and you're like, shit, I don't have any money. And so that was definitely one where I got some of that validation that you're talking about from your peers.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, let's just pause and say that I don't know what it is about the music industry where everybody wants their peers to tell them that they're doing a good job. It's total bullshit. Okay. So just get over it. Okay. Like if you're still working, then you're doing a good job. You don't need your buddy down the street who also makes records to tell you did a good job because he might not like what you do. He might be a great rapper and you're a great country artist and he doesn't listen to your music. He's never going to tell you it's great. He doesn't like it. It's not because it's bad. It's not his thing. But anyway, so peer approval, just toss that shit out the window as soon as you can. So that record. So some other times that come to mind are kind of those moments when you're working with somebody that you definitely think is like a couple tiers up and they want you to continue to work with them.
Yeah.
And, a lot of artists or producers that would come through Capitol, having someone request to work with you, that was like a big deal, both for you because you feel great, and also for your manager who's like, okay,
of course,
noticing that these people like to work with Travis. I'll take note of
Managers
this.
like to eat too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so a lot of those like just moments where people come to you asking you questions even.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about records, but if someone trusts your ear and they're like, hey, can you listen to this? Does this sound right?
Yeah.
Or, hey, I can't fix this. Do you know how to fix this?
Yeah.
Those moments you're like, oh, I must be doing something right if someone would come to me and ask me a question. And then another one that's more recent for me is I did work on a Taylor Swift record, the re-release of Red.
Yeah.
And that was having somebody call and be like, hey, would you be willing to come and do this? And not working, I don't call it working with Taylor. I call it working for Taylor.
Right. Of course.
Because we were recording musical tracks and she was elsewhere.
Yeah.
But just getting that phone call and to have someone trust you for something that is at that level, you're like, oh shit, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, you're doing the damn thing.
So I think it's the continuing to work and to just make some music and every once in a while have somebody come and loop around and be like, dude, that thing you did last year was amazing. Like, those are the things that keep you going. I think you asked for specifics. You got a couple of specifics in there, but.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. I mean, you did preface it with saying like, quit looking to your peers for validation. And then you talk about how important it was for your peers to validate what you did.
Well, I guess I should reiterate that it feels good. Like it's one of those,
when you get it, it feels
hold
good.
You back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if you're needy for it, it creates a totally different dynamic.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a better way to phrase what I meant.
I think you're doing a great job.
Next time we do this, I'll be much better. But on take 2, you comp, right?
Oh,
but,
there you go.
But I definitely think that comes from a place where I had a problem with that. Like I really wanted people to tell me that I was doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I felt if somebody wasn't telling me that I wasn't doing a good job, and it was like a real. It would really hold me back.
Yeah.
I didn't have the confidence that I should have had. And so when those things did happen, it is very reaffirming.
Yeah.
But since I've been there and I've put far too much weight on hoping you get that text message or hoping someone leaves a comment on your Facebook wall like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Don't do that because that will hold you back and that'll hurt you. But take it when it comes for sure.
I love that. That. No, I think your explanation was great. I'm glad that we kept going down that rabbit hole because I feel like I wanted like a very human sort of like, where did this come from thing from you? And I feel like you completely delivered in spades. Yeah. So,
I'll take it.
So I don't want to be a bad steward of the time that we have together, but I would love to. I know that there are a bunch of people that listen to this podcast who are at varying degrees of their place within the music industry, of maybe their own hometown situation that they're in. Some of them are like regional touring musicians, some of them are national. For the people just starting out who have so many questions, who might sort of be in that vein of the type of person that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, who are like, I I feel like I might tick the box of like, this is something that I want to express myself in this way and I want to go down this road of artistry. Do you have any go-to pieces of advice to sort of help fast track them past the first year and a half of like bullshit that everybody has to go through? Because everybody has different things to say. Everybody's seeing the world differently. And I love to hear what other producers and mix engineers have to tell artists.
Well, I have a lot of opinions on this one. I think the world now is extremely different than it was when I started. Like when I started,
Sure.
there was this path you were supposed to take. If you wanted to be a recording engineer, you worked in a studio, and then you became an engineer, an assistant, and then you became an engineer, and then some producer asked you to work for him, and then you mixed some records, and then you probably started producing because that's what you did after it was like this thing, this hierarchy. And that doesn't exist anymore. It does to a very small circle of people.
From Berkeley. Yep. I get it.
From Berkeley, yeah. No, but I think the way that, people are approaching their careers now, I think everybody kind of understands a little bit earlier on that it's very entrepreneurial, and it is you creating your own brand. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
That's one of the mistakes that I made. I think you have to, these days, you have to balance being an advocate for yourself and being a good hang, like, or playing your role.
Yeah.
Like when you're an engineer, your role is not to help with lyrics. But if you want to be a songwriter, how can you start a conversation with those top liners to learn something about how maybe you could start writing lyrics?
Right.
But don't throw lyrics out in that session. That is not your place. But you have to find that balance where you can be an advocate for where you want to go.
Yeah.
Also, one of my faults. I'm just going to give you guys all my faults. So
love it.
Yeah. And I'm over them. I'm fine with it. I think the other thing, which is something I talk about on my podcast a lot, is you can't fit into the mold that you think you want to. Like if you want to be the best mixer in the world, you're not going to be Manny or Bob Clearmountain. You're never going to have somebody else's career.
Yeah.
So like you can have idols and you can have inspiration, but don't like study everything they ever did, because it's never going to happen for you that way. And the more you learn about these people, like some of them have crazy stories of how they got their first gig and how big that first gig was. And so that's huge. That's a huge thing that you just can't fit into the mold of, don't try to fit into the mold of success that the music industry is going to like hang in front of you. You have to figure out what you want and then how you want to go there. Like if you want to have 3 kids and be a musician, then that's what you want.
Start trading stocks and playing shows on the weekend.
Exactly. Once you know what you want, then you can figure out how to get there. But you can't like sit around and be like, I'm going to win a Grammy, and then sit there and be like, when's my Grammy get here? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like you kind of have to work backwards and figure out like what realistic steps you need to take. And then along those lines of realistic steps, I think the idea of positioning yourself is super important. And what I mean by that is, if you want to score movies, don't live in Chicago and make advertising music.
Right.
If you want to be a front of house mixer, don't
be willing to go on tour.
Studio. Yeah, you have to like go do the thing. You have to go somewhere where you can do the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people will get caught in the idea of like, I'm going to get a job in the music industry just to say that I work in the music industry. And then one day I'm going to be a singer-songwriter. Well, if you get a job as an A&R assistant, you may never be a singer-songwriter, but maybe you'll be a record executive. But just know that, you're kind of that's the only thing you can control is like how you've set yourself up to meet your goals.
Yes.
And if you're setting yourself up in the wrong way, then you're never going to meet your goals. So
love that.
None of those are like quick tips, to like make it through your first year. But I mean, a couple things to make it through your first year. Don't be a dick. Practice, put the work in, and don't ever stop learning. Like just because you graduated from, say, Berklee College of Music, don't think that you know everything. You actually just like have this like baseline knowledge. Just because you were the best drummer in your high school doesn't mean you're very good, So keep practicing, keep learning, pick up a new skill. Those are the things that are going to compound over time.
Yeah. I love that. I love what you said earlier about like not, I'm reframing this or rewording it, but not desiring somebody else's career, taking note that you're in the process of writing your own mythology in the life that you're living. So spending too much time dedicated to like, well, this person did this and this is how they got their break and this is the thing they worked on and this is how they mix and they've got a parallel compression chain, 5 miles long for a vocal or like whatever. It's like, yeah, but maybe that's not you. There's 1,000 different ways to exist in this world, and every day there become more and more of them to explore. So just gravitate towards the things that like you really love and that you feel challenged by.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think when you identify the thing that is like you, and like what feels best to you in whatever form of artistry you're in, that's the thing you should embrace.
Yeah.
It can take a long time to figure out what your sound is or what your style is.
Yeah.
So you're going to go down a lot of roads. Don't get frustrated. But once you feel like you found the thing that resonates, then like really hammer home on that.
That's fantastic. I love it, man. Well, is there anything that you wanted me to ask you that did not get asked, or anything that you enjoy sort of waxing poetic about that wasn't brought up?
I don't know. I think I kind of went over the things that I seem to always want to tell, like an intern or a mentor or something.
Right.
But you've got to be resilient. It's, you're working for yourself. Like you're creating everything that you're doing. Yeah. Not just musically. Like if you want to make money doing this, understand the business side of it.
Right.
If you want to be a better musician, practice. Like the sooner you decide that your music career is an entrepreneurship, then the better off you're going to be. So yeah, it's all up to you. Nobody's going to hand you anything. Definitely not. Definitely nobody's going to hand you anything.
Yeah.
And, if you sign any kind of deals, make sure you know what the worst part of that deal is, not the best part. I think that's something else.
That's so
something
good.
else that people might forget. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of the things that excite me these days. Those are my rants.
I love it. Yeah. Well, dude, it's been an amazing time with you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening, especially with an 8-month-old. I feel like I got served filet mignon of conversation. This is fantastic. And even though you don't need it, I'm going to encourage you, float your boat and tell you that you're doing excellent work, a wonderful job. And I love the stuff that I've heard that you've done. And for everybody else listening, you also have a podcast called Progressions.
Yeah. Progressions, Success in the Music Industry.
Yeah.
It's, it'll be a lot of ramblings like you just heard. It's an interview show with a rambling intro about,
I hope you did a good ad for it on this show.
There you go. But yeah, if anybody has a question or something, feel free to reach out to me. Instagram is probably the only social media platform I'm active on, and that's T Ference. But I'm happy to meet new people, answer questions, listen to your music if you want. I don't know if that'll help you, but whatever, hit me up if you want to. So
awesome. I love that. Well, dude, thank you so much. And next time you're in Asheville, drinks on me. Let's high five and have some hangs.
It's a good craft beer scene there now, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I need a good craft beer. I don't know if I have any beer. I might have to go to the store. But this is a great hang, man. I really enjoyed it. It's a great conference. Good way to end my day. I really enjoyed it.
Let's do it again.
Thanks.
Eleventylife is a production of Rock Candy Recordings and Rock Candy Media. Every time you subscribe to Eleventylife, a